we have got Seth for privacy. My man, where's he at? There he is. What's up, buddy? Privacy meets user experience. All right.
Thanks. Thanks for the intro. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in. Feel free to just keep piling into seats as you need. It's not gonna interrupt me. I realized after I created this presentation that the blue light blocking glasses I wear turned pink into orange. So I thought it was Bitcoin orange. It's actually pink. So enjoy the pink slides for this one. But really excited to be here. I just wanted to give a shout out real quick to the Plan B Forum organizers. They've been absolutely fantastic throughout the process of inviting me here, giving me the chance to be able to go to panels. Yeah, I mean, definitely a round of applause for them. Did not expect to ever be in Lugano or ever be at this conference, but really, really honored to be able to be here. So today, I'll be talking, obviously, for privacy is in the name, so it's going to be privacy related. But I wanted to shift the focus a little bit more towards how we can help privacy adoption by actually focusing on user experience first and trying to bring privacy tools into kind of in a Trojan horse way into people's lives through building better user experience. Quick overview. I won't spend too much time on this one. But just jumping into really quickly why user experience matters. I mean, I think anyone in here probably can figure out why that's true. So I don't need to explain too much that if a tool that you want to use is really easy to use, you're going to use it more. If it's painful to use, you're not going to use it often. So that's self-explanatory. But what I think helps to better expand on this concept is to think about a certain case study. And Signal, the privacy messaging app, I think is a great example of this because many people who use Signal have no desire for personal privacy. That's not why they come to it. They come to it because their friends and family are there. They come to it because, at least in the past in the US, you could use it for texting and for sending Signal messages, which was actually a really powerful combo because for some reason in the US, we're still stuck on SMS for a lot of our communications. But ultimately, people come to Signal because they like the user experience. There's people like me that come to it because they care about the personal privacy that's provided. And then I'm able to bring along friends and family. Every single one of my in real life friends, all of my family are all using Signal for all of our communications because the user experience is just really nice. Cross-platform, we don't have to deal with the iMessage, Android garbage. And at the end of the day, they're getting really strong end-to-end encryption, even though they don't care about privacy. And that's a really powerful thing to me. And that's kind of what I want to focus on today as we walk through this. So shifting focus to Bitcoin, which is obviously why we're here, it's what we want to talk about. I wanted to walk through some examples of things within the Bitcoin space that are privacy-oriented that have either failed, succeeded, been kind of a mixed bag, and just kind of take a retrospective quickly before we dive into the core of the presentation today. But I think PayJoin v1, to be specific, because there is a v2 that was just proposed that fixes a lot of the issues that caused PayJoin v1 to ultimately be kind of a failed experiment, is a really interesting case because it's a really powerful privacy tool when you're actually spending, especially when you're paying a merchant for something. PayJoin should be a fantastic way for you to be able to gain privacy. The way that PayJoin works is essentially you work together with the person that you're paying to both contribute inputs to the transaction, and then you get outputs that aren't of the amount that you're actually spending. So you hide the amount that's being spent, you hide who the true spender is. It looks like a regular person just spending their own coins, but it's actually two users spending together. It has a lot of really good privacy benefits, and it can also have really good cost savings as well. If you're spending multiple inputs, especially a merchant can use it to actually consolidate in a way that's privacy preserving. So it's a really, really cool technology, but ultimately it's just totally failed in adoption. The only place I know of that this is actually implemented is in BTC Pay Server, and it actually works quite well on the server side, but very few wallets ever implemented sending to PayJoin, and as far as I know, no mobile wallets ever implemented receiving to PayJoin, because the requirement is ultimately that you have to act as a server. You have to be online all the time to be able to receive PayJoin payments, and when you're even sending a PayJoin payment, you have to be online that entire time communicating with the person that you're paying, which doesn't sound like much, but when we're talking about a mobile wallet, it actually makes it really, really tricky. Another example that I think is a really good kind of mixed bag example is CoinJoin, which is one of my absolute favorite tools in the Bitcoin space. It's absolutely vital for privacy when we're talking about on-chain payments. And so I don't want you to go away from this thinking that CoinJoin is bad or that you shouldn't use it. But I think it's an interesting case because, again, the technology is absolutely vital. It's really the only way that you can break the history of coins from the past, whatever has happened with them in the past, wherever you got them, from the future activity that you have. And that is something that you really have to have. But unfortunately, the user experience is actually pretty poor around CoinJoin, especially if you're trying to do anything on mobile. And much of the world is going to be primarily using a mobile device to use Bitcoin. So something that we've really seen here is there's an extremely loyal core user base that loves CoinJoin, that is passionate about it, that's willing to go to lengths to gain this privacy. And especially for the hardcore people that understand the need for privacy, they're able to achieve it with this. So CoinJoin is a vital tool, but because of the really difficult user experience, you have to be online constantly, waiting for other people who have the same size coins to be around. You have to communicate with them to make sure that you're able to build this transaction together. You have to hope that none of them go offline, or else you have to start over again. All of this leads to a very extensive process. You're going to have to wait a long time. If you want to mix multiple times, it's going to be exponentially harder. It really is a spotty user experience, even though it's an extremely powerful underlying technology. A third one that I'll just quickly hit on, because it relates to what we'll talk about later with silent payments, is paynims. And this was ultimately an implementation of something that's been generally called a stealth address or a reusable payment code. The Samurai Wallet team ran with what I think really is a flawed technology. It was called BIP47, was the Bitcoin improvement proposal. Where it was first proposed, it was denied by BIP maintainers and really had some fundamental flaws. The technology was not great, but the adoption actually went quite well compared to how most people thought it would, because I think Samurai Wallet did a good job of making the user experience reasonably good. You were able to very quickly within the app just create a new payment code, and then you could claim what they called a paynim, which is essentially like a short payment or a short identifier, like you can see up here. Bitcoin Q&A, who's a fantastic Bitcoin educator. This is a picture he had on his website. You can see that just plus BQA is all you would need to be able to pay him anytime without address reuse in any wallet that supported paynims, which I think was just Samurai Wallet and Sparrow Wallet. And that was a really nice user experience. You also got these automatically generated robots, which I know seem a little silly, but it's a nice social touch so that when you're sharing these, you get something that's actually a unique visual identifier for each person and kind of gamifies the social side of this. And now last but not least, self-custodial Lightning. I would say it's hard to kind of make a judgment on if this has failed or succeeded. There's been a lot of developments and a lot of improvements. I have a picture of Phoenix Wallet here because I think it's the most approachable self-custodial Lightning implementation, but it has some serious privacy issues because of the way that they're able to provide a really good user experience. And unfortunately, because of the difficulty of using self-custodial Lightning, we've seen many people shift towards custodial Lightning wallets, and then just sending funds once they get over a certain threshold to themselves on chain or maybe to a self-custodial wallet. And that's because the user experience on self-custodial Lightning can be quite difficult. It's getting better. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline that are going to help. But it's been, I think, a struggle when it comes to getting self-custodial Lightning adoption, which theoretically should provide strong privacy. But because of the user experience hurdles, it's been fairly limited. So ultimately, the kind of the crux of what I want to hit on today is that when we're thinking about building or using Bitcoin tools that provide privacy, I think something that's very important and is often missed is that really we need to be building tools that lead in user experience and also provide privacy. And I say that as someone who is a hardcore privacy advocate, who has used all of the hardcore tools that are out there and kind of suffered the pain of using many of the privacy tools that are out there, because often they're engineered to be the hardest core privacy possible, and then they think about user experience later. But that ultimately leads to far less people using these tools, and the less users you have in a privacy tool, the less private it's going to be. You have less people to hide among. You have a smaller anonymity set, and it's going to reduce not only the amount of people that gain freedom through the privacy the tool provides, but it's going to reduce the privacy that even those hardcore people that use it gain from the tool. So the main thing that I wanted to kind of shift out of this is into a real-world example of, I think, how this can be done really well today, using technologies that are just starting to become commonly adopted and actually implemented in the wild in the Bitcoin space. I'm just kind of calling this payment simplified. It's a trinity of three things that, when paired together, I think bring a really nice payments user experience that also brings really strong privacy. And most of the people who end up using these tools won't actually care about personal privacy. I think hopefully they will learn eventually that personal privacy is extremely important, but they'll come to them because of the user experience, and ultimately they'll gain strong user privacy as a result of them. So just a quick overview, and we'll dive into what these things are in just a second. In 2020, Bolt 12 was introduced for the Lightning Network, which was a spec of how we could essentially do static offers rather than the invoices that you're used to generating in a Lightning wallet every time. It's taken a long time to see adoption, but we're finally starting to see that now. In 2022, silent payments was introduced as a proposal by Ruben Somson. Doesn't require any changes to Bitcoin. I got really excited about it when it first launched, and for anyone who has followed me, you've seen me talk about silent payments over and over and over again, because I think that they stand to be an extremely powerful tool for helping people just be able to use Bitcoin in a much simpler way, but also to gain strong privacy. And then lastly, this year, BIP 353, which has a different title, but I just call it Bitcoin usernames because I think it's a little bit simpler, is a proposal that allows you to have something like tips at sethforprivacy.com and get paid on-chain or off-chain without running a server, without any of the complexity that you're used to with this type of thing. So diving into what these three technologies are. So Bolt 12 is something that I feel like I've been waiting on for the whole time I've been a Bitcoiner at this point, but it's finally actually seeing adoption. And ultimately what Bolt 12 is it is a single static offer that you can make within your Lightning node, within your Lightning wallet, like Phoenix here is the example I'm using. And this single static offer allows anyone to pay you at any time for any amount without having to generate a new invoice, without having to choosing the amount every time. And the beauty of this is twofold. One is just the user experience of having something like this, I think, is really underappreciated. Not only can you post this in your Twitter bio for donations, you can post it in a GitHub README, you can send it to friends and family, but you can also actually start to use things like address books in Bitcoin wallets now. So you can save the Bolt 12 offer from someone. I have one posted publicly. You could save it as Seth for privacy, and anytime you wanted to send money, you don't have to go ask me, hey, can you send me an invoice for 10,000 sats? You just hit, I want to pay Seth for privacy, 10,000 sats, you send the payment. And that user experience is just drastically better than what we have today in Lightning. But at the same time, Bolt 12 brings an extremely powerful privacy improvement. So blinded paths, I wrote blinded routes here, but blinded paths is the specific name, isn't something that's necessarily unique to Bolt 12. It can be done with regular invoices that you're used to, but it's pretty hacky. But it's being bundled with Bolt 12. And ultimately what this means is that right now in the Lightning Network, when you run your own node, you have your own channels, when you tell someone, hey, here's an invoice, pay me 10,000 sats, that invoice reveals what your node is, how to reach your node, so the IP address if you're not running on Tor, or the Tor address if you're running Tor only. It reveals the channel, and then the UTXO that actually backs that channel. It reveals a lot of information to the person who's paying you. Sometimes that's fine. If it's your friend, someone you trust, like obviously that's probably not a big deal. But if it's an entity you don't trust, if it's an exchange, you probably don't want to be revealing that much information about yourself. What blinded paths bring, which is bundled with Bolt 12, is when you actually tell someone to pay you, they scan this invoice or this offer. All that this tells them is it gives them an invoice that tells them to send the funds to a node. The node's actually not yours. It's going to be a node a few hops away from you. And trustlessly, they send that to the node. That node has to forward that payment to you. The node doesn't learn where the funds came from, although they do learn the end destination. And the user who pays you actually has no idea where you exist on the Lightning Network. They don't know what node you're using. They don't know what channel you're using. It hides a lot of the issues that we've had with receiver privacy in Lightning. And all this happens behind the scenes. You don't have to think about this. You don't have to enable something extra. You use Bolt 12 in something like Phoenix Wallet or Zeus, and you gain this today. So it's a great user experience benefit, and that's why most people will use it, but it also has strong privacy bundled with it. The other one, and the one that specifically I'm the most excited about, is silent payments. You can kind of think of silent payments as the on-chain equivalent of Bolt 12. It's a similar concept. It's a single static address that anyone can pay you at any time for any amount. You don't have to send them a new address every time, but actually when they pay you, they create a new address for you using their inputs in a deterministic way. So it's kind of weird because you don't know what address you'll actually be paid at on chain until someone pays you, which introduces some other trade-offs with scanning that we can touch on if we have time. But ultimately, it means that you can have one static address. Again, this means you can post it on your Twitter bio, you can put it in a GitHub README, you can send it to friends and family, they can add it to an address book, and you can always pay me at the same silent payment address, no matter what, with no address reuse. when you actually pay me, that unique address that's on chain is not linked at all to this silent payment address. No other person could know that that Taproot output actually belongs to the person who owns the silent payment address. It's totally disconnected. So not only does it eliminate address reuse, it actually provides really strong receiver privacy. It doesn't solve all of Bitcoin's privacy problems, but it does provide strong privacy in that one specific use case. And the user experience is just greatly simplified. If you've been in Bitcoin for a long time, I'm sure you're used to the concept of when I hit receive, I get a new Bitcoin address. But that concept is really foreign to someone who's not been in Bitcoin for a long time. If you hand a Bitcoin wallet to somebody and they hit receive and then they go back and then they hit receive again, why is the address changing? Like, is all this money going to the same place? I work at Cake Wallet. We've been working really hard on silent payments and leading the way. We're the only one with sending and receiving for silent payments today. And something interesting is I've seen many users who actually will intentionally reuse an address because it gives them more confidence that the money will actually end up in their wallet, which is awful for privacy, but it makes them feel comfortable because they know I've received to this address before, and they will manually save that address and intentionally send to it over and over again whenever they want to receive funds, which hurts me as a privacy advocate, but I understand from a user experience perspective that that feels better as somebody who's not deeply integrated into the Bitcoin ecosystem. So silent payments is a really big improvement. It pairs well with Bolt 12. They're really nice separately, but something that brings them together is this recent proposal, BIP 353, which I'll just call Bitcoin usernames from now on. Ultimately, what this is something that allows you to have a domain that you control. It could be, for instance, I control SethForPrivacy.com, so I'm using this tips at SethForPrivacy.com to do BIP 353 right now. If you own a domain, you can create what's called a text record on the domain, which sounds a little complex now, but we'll definitely be simplifying it in the future. You just create this one entry, you tell it what addresses you want to get paid at, hopefully a silent payment address and a Bolt 12 offer so that you have strong privacy, and anyone can pay you at that from now on. Not all wallets support BIP 353, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's a really powerful tool because suddenly you have the user experience that people are used to with Cash App, with PayPal, et cetera. They're used to being able to say, oh, just pay me at hashtag Seth for privacy if you're going to Cash App, or this email address via PayPal. And suddenly you have that same user experience, but instead of the previous attempts at this, which normally required trusting a third party, you were either trusting them entirely to send you the payments, or you were trusting them to hopefully send you the money at the end of the day, or they were running the server for you because most people aren't going to run like an LNURL server. You don't need to trust any third party now outside of the domain provider, which is a separate topic, but you have much lower or much better trust assumptions than you've ever had before, and you have to run zero software, zero servers to be able to achieve this. You use a wallet that supports Bolt 12, use a wallet that supports silent payments, you buy a domain, which you can buy in Bitcoin in many places, like in Jala, and then you set this up. So ultimately, BIP 353, it's really simple. It's just you buy a domain, you pick what name you want to receive funds at, you can have as many as you want, and they're funds that you control. So this QR code is just an example of BIP 353. Please don't send me money. There's people who actually need money, but if you scan this in something that supports BIP 353, like Phoenix Wallet, you'll see that immediately you'll be able to pay me using Bolt 12. And I never had to give you the offer. The QR code is tiny because it's just this domain name. It's much, much simpler. And imagine, right now, again, we're used to, if I need to give someone a Bitcoin address, I can't do it over the phone. It's literally impossible. So I'm going to have to find some way to copy and paste. We have to find these ways off-chain to be able to communicate where you're going to pay me. And now it's so much simpler. If you're just chatting with someone, you catch up with someone at lunch, they're going to pay you back. You just say, oh, just pay me back at tips at SethForPrivacy.com. And you're done. You don't have to worry about Bitcoin addresses. You don't have to worry about Lightning invoices, but you're not having to run any software. You're not having to run a server. You don't have to be a sysadmin to be able to do this. It brings a user experience that many people are used to Bitcoin in a way that's relatively trustless, which is fantastic. So I know we have a good bit of time left here, so hopefully we can get to some questions if you'll have any. But really quick, what's next is ultimately we need broader adoption of all of these technologies. BIP 353 was just finalized, just merged like maybe 2 or 3 months ago into the BIP repo. So it's very fresh. Like I said, there is support in Phoenix Wallet. I think Zeus might have it as well. I'm not sure what other wallets yet. But this one's a really simple one to add. So wallet devs should add this. If you like this feature and you like the idea of having this in your preferred wallet, reach out to them. It's super simple. All wallets are already doing domain name resolution anyways. So adding this takes 2 seconds for their devs. The second thing, and something that I briefly touched on before, is just that actually making the BIP353 username needs to be simpler. Right now, you have to know how to buy a domain. You have to know how to create this text record. It's a weird string that you have to kind of create yourself that has these payment addresses in it. It's a little odd. It's not that complex. I have a guide on sethforprivacy.com on how to do it right now. And I really think anyone can do it. But I understand that the lower we can create the barrier of entry, the more use that we'll see. Companies could also provide this type of username for you. And you could do it in a way that's quite trust minimized, because if they're a good open source wallet, you could have the wallet itself validate that the DNS is actually pointing to your addresses every time you open the wallet as a check against the company being a malicious entity. But I really want more and more people to actually own their domains and use this, because it should be really, really simple to do. And that's something that we're working on at Cake Wallet as well, to try to make it as simple as possible. And the last thing is really just broader Bolt 12 and silent payment adoption. Bolt 12 is mature enough that it should be everywhere. Thankfully, Core Lightning has full Bolt 12 support, so any nodes that you're running that are Core Lightning can do Bolt 12 offers today. Phoenix Wallet, which they have their own backend called Declare, they wouldn't run yourself, but Phoenix Wallet has full Bolt 12 support. Unfortunately, LND does not have Bolt 12 support, and I'm not sure when it's going to happen. If you know anyone at Lightning Labs or just want to yell at someone on Twitter, it'd be good to keep putting pressure on them to finalize finally Bolt 12 support, because they're the largest Lightning implementation in the ecosystem. So the faster they support it, the faster all your favorite wallets will have support for Bolt 12. Then silent payments were really, really early. Like I said, Cake Wallet's the first and only wallet that has sending and receiving support. So we're learning a lot as we build this out on how we can improve the wallet side, the server side, as there's some different scanning assumptions. It's not quite the same as your normal Electrum, here's my address, give me my balance. It's actually done in a very privacy-preserving way, but there's some growing pains with that. So we definitely want to see more adoption, but there's a lot of work that kind of has to happen upstream of even wallet devs before we can see that. And a lot of work is happening behind the scenes, mainly by a fantastic person named Josie Bake, who's an unsung hero in the Bitcoin space. He does so much, especially around silent payments right now, but isn't really well known publicly. But yeah, that's about it. If you want to learn more, I work at Cake Wallet. I'm the VP of Operations. That's where you can try out silent payments. I would love your feedback. So if you try it out and you hate it, you love it, whatever, let me know. Contact info is there for Twitter and Signal. Shoot me a message. I'll be out here. I'll just hang out for a little bit in case anybody has more questions, but I think looks like we have a few minutes. Yeah, so why don't we do some questions? If anybody has any questions about Bolt 12, silent payments, Bitcoin usernames, anything. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I share the excitement about silent payments. It's just very frustrating because, as you said, I think Cake Wallet is the only one that supports receiving, unless you use the web kind of. But yeah, I've got to be honest, I've actually never used Cake Wallet, and I have read about it, but it's one of those a little bit exotic ones maybe. So could you maybe just say a little bit more about Cake Wallet and what the thinking is behind it, and who would want to use it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So to give you the full disclosure, Cake Wallet started as a Monero wallet back in 2018, which is really because privacy is at the heart of everything that we do. We want to provide really strong financial privacy to every user of our app, and that isn't necessarily always Bitcoin. Bitcoin is transparent by design, which has some benefits, and it also has a lot of problems when you're talking about someone who actually wants to gain personal privacy. So we started as a Monero wallet, but we quickly branched out. Our kind of bread and butter is Bitcoin and Monero, and really the focus for me and for the team is bringing the best possible privacy at the cutting edge to Bitcoin specifically. We have other cryptocurrencies in there because they're ones that are widely used by our user base, but our big focus is definitely Bitcoin and Monero. And a lot of the reason why I wanted to jump over, I just joined Cake Wallet about 2 months ago, is because they're, like I said, they're the only one that have silent payments, send and receive. They were the first to that, even though they're not a Bitcoin-only wallet, because they understood the need for personal privacy, and they understood the need for user experience improvements that bring that. And it's a place that we can really push hard on privacy in Bitcoin. So ultimately, it's a multi-cryptocurrency hot wallet on your phone, iOS and Android, fully open source. totally free to use, and is really trying to put privacy at the heart of everything and make privacy accessible to anyone, not just the tech savvy. Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to silent payments, just to give a really quick intro, with silent payments, like I mentioned before, you don't know what addresses you're going to receive funds at until you receive funds. So unlike a normal Bitcoin wallet where you derive all the addresses you could possibly receive funds to, you send them to a server and you say, did I receive funds to any of these addresses? You can't do that in silent payments. You don't know what on-chain Taproot addresses you'll receive payments to. So instead, you can do one of two things. You can either get the minimum required data from a trusted server or untrusted server, it doesn't matter. You can get that minimum required data and you actually scan locally. So your private keys stay local, you get a little bit of data from this node and you scan to make sure, are any of these unspent Taproot outputs mine? So you can do that locally. That is going to be more time consuming than what you're used to using a regular Bitcoin BIP32 Electrum wallet because you're not revealing everything about your payments to an external server. The other approach, and the one that's not possible right now but is coming, is that in silent payments you have actually two keys. You have your private key, just like everyone's used to, but you also have a scan key for every silent payment address. You can give that scan key to a server that you trust and let them do all of the scanning when it's always on. So this could be a Start9 at your home. This could be a company that you trust. They have the scan key. They're unable to spend funds, but they can see when you receive funds, which is essentially the same privacy assumptions as using an Electrum server, which is what every single Bitcoin wallet essentially does right now. But you don't have to deal with any of the increased scanning time and the increased bandwidth. And it's especially ideal for anyone running a Bitcoin node because it will be trivial. Like I said, it's not available now, but it will be trivial to just run one extra piece of software that connects to your Bitcoin core node, accepts scan keys, and just does the scanning for you and tells you about transactions.
All right. So it seems to me that trying to get people to operate privately on Bitcoin is basically a Sisyphusian task. It's so much easier to tell people to use Monero because you just go use whatever Monero wallet you want. But then you get into Bitcoin and, defaults are really sticky and almost none of the wallets in the space take advantage of privacy stuff. Almost everybody gets their Bitcoin from KYC exchanges. Really what I'm getting at here is, do you think that it's a battle worth fighting, and can we get to the point where in order to operate privately on Bitcoin, you don't have to do things like know what a UTXO is and keep track of taint and all of that stuff?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's been one that I've been deeply, deeply contemplating, especially since the arrest of the Samurai Wallet team in April, because it really shook up the privacy tool app layer space in the Bitcoin world. And I think there are two possible futures. There's a reason why I went to work at a wallet that has Monero and loves Monero, because I've long been in the Monero community since before I was in the Bitcoin community. I was a Monero user. I love their fanatic passion for financial privacy and the way that they achieve it. And I think Monero is a fantastically useful tool alongside Bitcoin. I think both go hand in hand best rather than just one or the other. But the reason why I also am extremely passionate about working on things like silent payment and Bitcoin is because obviously there's a clear network effect here. People are going to use Bitcoin. And if we can especially implement tools that users don't even understand are providing privacy and yet are, we can have some wins on low-hanging fruit. But I think there's ultimately two futures for Bitcoin. One is we refuse to make any changes to Bitcoin. We don't do covenants. We don't do anything else. And privacy at the base layer becomes impossible at some point. It's already very, very, very difficult, time-consuming, and costly. And it will only get worse. Or we decide that we care enough about financial privacy, and ultimately I think censorship resistance and freedom, because I don't think that Bitcoin can be freedom money without privacy. We care enough about that we say that we are willing to make cautious, conservative changes to Bitcoin, like enabling covenants, so that we can build better privacy tools and so that more people can actually achieve privacy. And I'm hoping that we choose that second future. I've been pushing hard. I'm hoping we can get rough consensus to get behind that. Because I'm worried that if we don't open up ourselves to cautious conservative change, not just any change anywhere in Bitcoin, but cautious conservative change that enables better privacy, privacy is just going to die. And people who care about privacy will go elsewhere, and people who don't care about privacy will suffer. So that's a hard note to, I guess, end on. But
Well,
yeah.
I wanted to get this guy's question if we can just do really quick.
Sure.
Yeah, very good question. I wanted to ask you, is it a good use case for Bitcoiners, even if we only like Bitcoin anyway, for privacy purpose, to convert Bitcoin to Monero, wait a few days, and then get it back as Bitcoin? Because nobody mentioned it until now, but I think it's a good case. What do you say?
Yeah. I mean, I think the best case for many Bitcoiners today would be to use Monero for spending and Bitcoin for savings. The thing that I would caution is if you just swap to Monero and immediately spend, you're going to greatly reduce the privacy that you gain because timing analysis and amount analysis on the Bitcoin side will harm you. So ultimately what you want to do, and again, I'm not here to shitcoin, but I think Monero is a really useful, I know. I think Monero is a really useful tool, and I'm here for the useful tools. I'm not here for number go up or any of that. I'm here for useful tools. And if you want to use Monero like that, the way that I would recommend it is if you think you're going to spend $500 this month, buy $500 worth of Monero. You can easily convert from Bitcoin to Monero in Cake Wallet. There are many other ways. There are atomic swaps, which we're working really hard on to do trustless swaps between Bitcoin and Monero that are live today, and better options for that coming in the future. And just swap to the amount you think you need for like a month, spend from that, top up when you need to, and it's a really powerful combination. It's kind of what I want Lightning to be, but I feel like Lightning isn't quite there for spending in a way that's always privacy preserving. As opposed to Monero. So yeah, I think that's a good use case for it for sure.
Well, luckily somebody's implementing Bolt 12, right? I heard just now.
Trying. Yeah.
Awesome. Seth for privacy. Let's hear it for him, man.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.